paycheck just posted, and the rent bill already warns, late fee after the 5th. In August 2025, renters spent 28.4% of income on rent, about $1 in 3 gone before groceries or pills, which means a small penalty can break the month. The card cannot float it, the portal adds a service fee, and the lease now bundles parking and required insurance. You pay, yet the balance still grows. Is this still called rent, or a delayed eviction? The rent bill sits on the table with a line that wasn't there last month. Late fee $75 after the 5th. The card balance is nearly maxed, payday is Friday, and the question is plain. What covers today's rent when cash lands at week's end? The math behind this month is harder than it used to be. In August 2025, the typical renter spent 28.4% of income on rent, according to Zillow. In simple words, nearly 1 out of every $3 went straight to the landlord, leaving less for groceries, medicine, and gas. When the margin is that thin, a fee or a small delay becomes the difference between paid and unpaid. Penalties push people over the line. Investigations published in November 2025 found average late fees around $150 in many places, and court data show filings in several cities running above pre-pandemic norms. For a low-wage worker, that charge equals roughly half a day on the job. It does not catch you up. It digs the hole deeper. Small add-ons make a heavy month feel impossible. A property manager adds a $25 administrative charge unless you pay through their preferred ACH portal. The lease fine print lists a $150 emergency visit by the superintendent for issues that used to be routine. Parking becomes mandatory, and without it, the renewal will not be offered. None of these lines look large by themselves. Together, they turn rent into a moving target you cannot plan for. Here is the domino that hits right now. Rent takes a larger share of take-home pay. A late fee triggers after the 5th. The balance rolls forward with penalties. Next month starts in the red, and the notice clock begins to tick. That is how one ordinary bill becomes the month's breaking point. People who have never missed a payment are feeling it. One sentence captures the mood from a renter in their 50s. I always paid on time. When did a fee become the rule? It seems there is nowhere left to cut. But the real hit hides in a different line, the one that gets passed through even when the lease price did not change. Insurance and taxes. The lease did not change, but the bill did. The manager's note is short. Increase reflects insurance and property tax pass-throughs. The total is up by $92. Nothing about the square footage is different. Only the lines you do not see on the listing have grown. Here is what that means in plain terms. Property taxes climbed across the country, and owners are folding that cost into renewals. In 2024, total U.S. property tax collections on homes reached about $363 billion, up 7.4% from the year before. When a building's tax bill rises, even by a few $100s per unit for the year, many landlords spread it into monthly rent, often $30 to $120 more for the same apartment. Insurance pushes the same way. By August 2025, the average homeowner's insurance premium was roughly 23% higher than in 2021. Owners who once absorbed part of that increase now push it to tenants through insurance recovery lines or mandatory products sold via partner portals. For a complex with higher risk or recent storm claims, the annual jump can be $400 to $600 per unit, which shows up as another $5 to $50 a month in your ledger. The small print changes keep coming. The building rolls out required renter insurance, but only through its preferred broker at a marked-up rate. The HOA raises dues after elevator repairs and a roof fix. Your lease adds a community maintenance fee that did not exist before. A utility audit leads to back billing for common area electricity. Package lockers move from free to $5 or $10 a month. Parking turns from optional to mandatory. None of these items look huge on their own. Together, they turn the effective rent into a higher number than the one printed on the lease. Household math feels it immediately. A $90 increase sounds modest, but on a fixed income, it cancels a copay, cuts one grocery run, or wipes out the gas budget. If payday does not align with the due date, the late fee kicks in, and the higher balance rolls forward. One tight month becomes two. People in their 60s who never missed a payment are asking the same thing. I did not buy this building. Why am I paying its tax hikes and insurance? The answer is simple and unsatisfying. Owners price to cover their bills. When those bills climb, tenants fund the difference unless a lease forbids it. Most do not. Here is the chain this month. Taxes and insurance rise. Owners pass costs through as fees and required add-ons. The effective rent climbs without a move. The next bill is larger than the last, and the budget snaps. We looked at prices. We should have looked at pressure. The kind that shows up not in the listing, but in the notice that follows a missed payment. Evictions and debt. The text from the court arrives before the paycheck does. A plain envelope, a hearing date, a balance that grew because the first fee triggered the second one. The landlord will not extend. The manager will not waive. When the card is maxed and shifts shrink, there is no way to bridge the gap between the 5th of the month and Friday. This is where debt and hours collide. After the federal pause ended, serious student loan trouble climbed. In the second quarter of 2025, about 1 in 10 student loans was over 90 days late, according to the New York Fed, as reported in August 2025. That pulls hundreds of dollars a month out of the same account that must cover rent, utilities, and groceries. When a payment that big restarts, every other bill moves down the line. The court pipeline is busy in many cities. Eviction Lab's annual readout shows that Phoenix recorded an eviction filing rate of 14.3% in 2024, roughly one filing for every 7 renter households that year. Other tracked places sit lower, but several also report activity above pre-pandemic baselines. For a tenant, that means the system moves fast once the landlord files. If you miss a deadline, the case proceeds without you. Work is not the safety valve it used to be. Schedules in retail and food service flex downward when foot traffic softens, and a small cut in weekly hours erases the plan to catch up. Overtime dries up. Side gigs take longer to pay. The fallback, using a credit card to float the rent, fails if the issuer flags 90-day delinquency and suspends the line. Without that bridge, the landlord's office becomes the first creditor in line. 2 things happen next, and both make the month harder. Late fees and legal costs start ticking the moment the filing enters the system, so the balance grows while you are gathering documents. Then the renewal becomes conditional. Higher deposit, tighter credit score, and new risk add-ons that lift the payment even if the base rent looks unchanged. A family that could scrape together the old amount cannot meet the new threshold. One sentence from a renter in their 60s captures the rhythm of this month. I am not asking for a discount. I am asking for time. Time is exactly what the process removes. Once the notice is posted, dates are set by the court, not the household. When time disappears, another envelope arrives, with a seal in the corner and a clock that starts the moment you open it. Court and warnings. The envelope with the seal lands first. Pay or quit. A deadline in bold. A balance that grew with fees you did not expect. The meaning is simple. Bring the full amount, plus charges, or the case moves to court. Dates are now set by the process, not by your paycheck. There is no partial in that sentence. Here is how the clock actually works. In many states, the pay or quit window is only 3 to 7 days from delivery of the notice. Miss it, and the landlord files. The first hearing often follows within a few weeks, and if you do not appear, the judge can decide the case on the spot. Legal guides and state codes spell it out in plain language, and tenants learn it when it is already late. Most cases never see a full defense. Research shows a large share end without the tenant present, what courts call default judgments. In several tract cities, roughly a third to half of filings conclude this way. When that happens, the order issues quickly, and the marshal or sheriff sets a lockout date. No lawyer, no evidence, no payment plan, just a judgment because the hearing was missed. Costs rise while the days fall. Filing fees, service fees, attorney's fees, and daily rent keep adding to the ledger. A stipulated agreement can pause the case, but only if you meet every term on time. One late paycheck, one declined card, and the judgment springs back with all charges included. People in their 60s who handled bills for decades find themselves reading terms they have never seen. Writ of restitution, possession order, lockout. A separate pipeline tightens the squeeze. October 2025 saw about 130,000 properties receive a foreclosure notice, auction scheduling, or bank repossession. When an owner is in default, tenants discover the final date when a notice appears on the door. Your payments may be current, the building's debt is not, and the auction does not wait. Two quiet twists make this month even harder. First, notice errors are common. Papers arrive late or to the wrong unit, and the clock still runs. Second, sales can close with tenants in place, shifting you to a new owner who resets the rules. Higher deposit, new fees, tighter screening, even if the base rent looks the same. Plain English for the paperwork. Pay or quit means pay everything listed by the date or prepare to move. A stipulated agreement is a strict payment plan that ends the case only if you hit every milestone. Miss a step, and the judgment enters. Default judgment means the decision went against you because you were not in the room. When the courtroom door closes, something closes outside it too. A block that once held steady begins to thin out. Fewer lights at night, fewer receipts in nearby stores, fewer shifts posted on the break room wall. Empty blocks. The lights go out earlier on this block now. A corner store keeps shorter hours. The pharmacy across the avenue moved 2 miles away. The coffee shop cut staff and closes on Mondays. None of this makes the rent easier to cover. It just makes every errand take longer and cost more. City finances are tightening in the background. In August 2025, a review by the Pew Charitable Trusts found that at least 20 of the 25 largest U.S. cities reported budget gaps for fiscal year 2026. In everyday terms, that means fewer dollars for transit, sanitation, parks, and police, unless leaders raise fees or taxes. When services shrink, customers stay home, and local receipts sink further. Commercial bills keep climbing too. The Council of Insurance Agents and Brokers reported in its second quarter 2025 survey that average premiums across property casualty lines rose another 3.7%, the 31st straight quarter of increases. For a small market, that is a higher monthly payment just to keep the doors covered, which can mean one less employee or one more surcharge at the register. Another pressure point sits in office districts. Reporting in mid-August 2025 showed major cities facing weaker property tax collections as office values fell and vacancies stayed high. When large buildings pay less, the shortfall shifts to homeowners and small businesses, or services get cut. Either way, the neighborhood feels poorer. Dimmer streets, slower repairs, fewer shifts posted on break room walls. Here is how this plays out for renters. Fewer open storefronts reduce nearby jobs and tips. Shorter transit hours push people to drive and pay for parking. Grocery prices do not fall just because the bus runs less often. When a city trims budgets, everyday costs rise in different places, and the end of the month gets harder to reach. Two quiet turns add strain. First, landlords pass their rising insurance and tax bills through to tenants as community or administrative fees, so the advertised rent is not the true payment. Second, vacancies in commercial space invite new owners who reset terms, new deposits, stricter screening, and fresh charges that raise the bar to stay housed. This is the chain on the ground. Retail thins out, hours are cut, take-home pay falls, late fees multiply, move-outs climb, and more units sit empty between tenants. A building with fewer residents and a block with fewer shops both collect less, so the next round of cuts hits sooner. It would be easy to say this is just one bad season. The documents say otherwise. They point to a wider break between what rent demands and what Paychecks can carry, and the number that confirms it is the one that always shows up last. Real gap. The number that settles the argument is the one that touches the kitchen table. The Federal Reserve reported in May 2025 that only 63% of adults could cover an unexpected $400 bill. In plain terms, more than a third of households would come up short. When a surprise charge lands in a month with higher rent and new fees, the rent is the bill that breaks. Another signal confirms the strain is not confined to low incomes. Harvard's housing report counted about 12.1 million renter households in 2023 spending over half of their income on housing. That level of burden leaves almost no room for groceries, medicine, or car repairs. A small slip becomes a crisis, and a single missed due date can push a steady family into a hearing they never imagined. Here is the gap in everyday words. Rents moved faster than pay in many places, while savings thinned. Fixed costs rose quietly through add-ons and pass-throughs. Work schedules softened. Credit lines that once bridged a week are frozen by delinquency rules. A late fee then stacks on top of a larger balance. By the time a paycheck lands, the amount due is bigger than the envelope that carries it. For people in their 60s, the hardest part is the loss of control. Decades of on-time payments used to protect you. Now the rules hinge on fees, portals, and deadlines that do not bend. A stipulated plan can keep you housed only if every date matches your cash flow exactly. One delay, and the agreement collapses with costs added back. This is what going broke on time looks like at the household level. The notice arrives before the money. The new owner resets terms. The city trims services that made the neighborhood workable. A building empties a few units at a time. A block closes one shop after another. The rent does not look extreme on a website, but the effective payment is beyond reach in the month that matters. Two quiet truths sit underneath. First, this is not about personal failure. It is about a payment system that shifted more risk onto renters and then removed the cushion that used to absorb shocks. Second, help often arrives on a timetable that trails the bills. Relief funds, court clinics, and city programs can steady a household, but only if the clock has not already run out. So the conclusion is plain and cold. The break is not taste or preference. It is arithmetic. When the rent rises faster than income and the emergency fund is thin, the month snaps in the same place again and again. What comes next will not be a headline first. It will be a calendar, the next court docket for your county, the next utility increase notice sliding under the door. The The next monthly update that shows filings climbing in one more city that thought it was past the worst. When those dates line up, they will decide who keeps a set of keys and who spends another Thursday evening reading a notice that arrived before the paycheck.